Hey everybody, I'm Maria Campbell, founder of Cooks Who Care, and I'm sitting in a beautiful Philadelphia park, Liberty Lands Park, and we are here to talk about caring about yourself, things that you're not aware of, diving into industry norms that really need to be challenged. And I encourage you to engage in this conversation, make comments, reach out to us through email, call me on the phone, and let's talk about things that people are not talking about. I'm talking with Karen Nicolas today, who many of you may even know as her track record, but really it's about the person, the individual, the choices, the life decisions. You are more than what you do for your job. You're a human being, and what Cooks Who Care does is we connect with that new identity that you need to see for yourself. So thanks for watching Cooks Who Care. Like, subscribe, share our messaging, and talk to people. If this inspired a conversation for you to have that you didn't, I feel we've won. Why is self-care so important?
For the longest time, I never really thought about self-care. It was more about being in an industry. It was more about ego and succeeding. I think it took a health issue for me to realize that self-care, really, you're really living then, and to be truly happy, you can't find that happiness without self-care first and being self-aware of the things that are right in your life and the things that are not so right in your life. I think there's more peace of mind when you have self-care.
What was it that changed in your life that kind of redirected where your thought and intentions were?
Right. Well, I was working as I always do, being a chef in the industry, and then I started feeling some body pains, and it became pretty intense pretty fast, and so I went to a doctor. I was diagnosed with an advanced lupus nephritis, chronic kidney disease as well. So, I wanted to stick with it though. I wanted to stay with where I was at and continue to cook, and as weeks went by, days were very long. Weeks went by, and I wasn't getting any better, and then at some point, honestly, there were times when I just wanted to die. And at some point, when you're living with pain, you're just like, why am I doing this to myself? So I finally woke up one day and I said, I have to change. And so I put in my notice and I decided I'm going to change my life. I had no answer, but I think the first answer for me was to leave the business. But I couldn't try to figure it out if I'm working so many hours a day, if I'm eating foods that I'm reading I shouldn't be eating, and I'm surrounded by it, I love it, and if I'm stressed out by the natural norms of everyday life in the restaurant kitchen. And so that was, I want to say, the first step to figure it out was to leave, and make that choice. And
we were talking about awareness earlier. Like, what do you think it is, or maybe you want to comment on the lack of awareness that people have with their self-regulation?
Yeah, well, I think if we're talking about the business in particular, I think you get so involved with the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day pressures that you can't even think about yourself. It's like, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I got 5 minutes to do that, and it's all day long. And then you go home, or you get off your work and you drink a little bit, and then you go home and you fall asleep and you wake up and you do it again. There's no time to think about yourself or your family, if you have a family. I'm not married or have children, but and at some point it's going to strain your body, and it strain mine, and strain your mental health, and suddenly you just realize you're an angry person, you're an impatient person, and maybe that's really not who you are, but the environment and the work environment that you're in creates that.
People say that, like, oh, when I got in the food business made me an asshole.
Yeah.
I
would say that,
Yeah.
As a female in the business, the pressure to try to be up top, and that was always my goal. I want to be better than this person. I want to make it as a female. So that's what you do. You dedicate your entire life, every minute of your life, to this industry. You want to work for the best, so you go work for the best. And then there's no such, the self-care just doesn't exist. You know, I tried to change the way I was eating while I was working, and I couldn't do it. I failed every time to not eat gluten, you know, which, you know, when you have autoimmunity, gluten, sugar, it's huge not to eat that. And I couldn't do it. You know, I would try, I would fail, and then when you continue to fail, then you, once again, it just kills your ego and it kills your drive.
I was gonna say, like, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
You're like, you set this goal for yourself, you can't meet it, then you feel like you failed.
Yeah. So I had to step away from that life, and I think, and so I go to this little clinic in Bali, Indonesia, and I think one of the great things is it was a truly deep cleanse, but it was also which I didn't know it was going to be. It was an emotional cleanse as well. So there were a lot of emotional therapies. I wasn't ready for it, and it rocked my world a little bit. But it also was the stepping stone of being self-aware and realizing the importance of self-care. And I don't think I would have gone on the path that I've been on this past year if I hadn't gone to Bali and be
completely separate
and dive into Ayurveda. Yeah,
just dive
completely
into
separate. Yeah,
I mean, that's immersion.
Yeah.
You know, like put myself in that moment. I need to physically separate myself to get myself mentally prepared for this new action. That's hugely important.
Yeah, you know, you don't expect it. You know, I do believe that you are your own worst enemy. Your mind is your own worst enemy. I mean, it just leads you in the wrong direction. And if you can't control that, your thoughts, if you can't control your thoughts, you're always going to feel stuck. But you first have to realize that your mind isn't who you are.
Yep.
And that takes some serious training of the mind to figure that out and to be able to be aware of it. Look, as a chef, you know, I was tough, you know, and I pushed the people that worked under me, and you know what? But now I want to shift that and more like help people, you know, and so that cooking used to be about ego, but now I want it to be more meaningful, you know, and it's when I finally said that to myself one day through this past year, I realized I was doing it wrong this whole time. Can be talented, but it doesn't have to be just about being in the media or having, you know, a good reputation that you can cook, or, you know, there's a lot more to cooking, and cooking should be nurturing and healthy for you, you know, and I finally realized, I was doing it not necessarily wrong, but it was the wrong path.
What I think is specifically hard for our industry is because that connection is to separate yourself from it. It is about them, the thing I'm doing, I'm nourishing, I'm helping people. People will comment, I feel fulfilled when someone else is fulfilled. Nurses, doctors do the same thing. I feel fulfilled when I've improved the health and wellness of a person. Holistic professionals, same thing.
Yeah.
It's this external thing that doesn't come back. And I worry when they say that's the reason, their why, their answer for that. I'm like, well, that's a shallow pool.
Yeah, know your why. I mean, look, the modern day chef, they're nurturing themselves, you know, and you know, you see it on Instagram, you know, they're all competing to make the coolest looking picture. I mean, it's you know.
Right.
I mean, I post on Instagram, I like to post my food, but, you know, it's actually another shift for me was I would post. When I started, I had to reteach myself how to cook. When I went gluten-free, I went dairy-free, I went caffeine-free, I went sugar-free. I had to reteach myself how to cook, and then I started, and it sucked at first, and I was miserable. I was like, no, I want to cook with this. I want to put in a little bit of butter here, and I couldn't do it, and I wouldn't do it, and then thank goodness, right? Yeah. So I finally started getting good at it, and after practicing, and so then I would post it on Instagram. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, I was, instead of getting like foodie followers, I was getting more wellness people followers. Yeah. And they'd be like, hey, can I have that recipe? Or you should write a book on it. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is great. I was like, I feel like they're trying to tell me something. That I can give, I have something else to offer.
How do I envision myself going through that? What does it look like? That's the hard part. I think that's where fear kind of like comes in. Like, I don't know any other way. It's either this or not. You know, it is black or white. It is, there's no gray.
Yeah.
What's the gray?
Yeah.
You know, what shade is that? Where am I going to get myself and how do I envision
The
myself?
success does not have to be about what you do, how much money you make. It is in our culture, unfortunately. But no, it should be really, what is success? Are you happy? You know, and you know, I'm still on that path to finding true happiness. But I think being loved, being able to love, feeling true joy, that's success in life, and enjoying life, what this world has to offer. But geez, I mean, it took me way too long to figure that out.